During my research, I came across an active volcano brimming with aggressively combative creatures, vying for what I can only guess is the leader or apex position. Out of all the monsters that I saw, living rock and flames, fire-spewing lizards and beasts, a monstrosity made out of lava and metal of all things, none caught my attention more than a small, orange, fluffy, phoenix fox-like mammal. While it was clearly one of the weakest among all the combatants, it wouldn't back down. It would get battered with rocks, inundated with flames, and viciously struck with tooth and claw, but every time it would get dismissed as defeated, it would get back up and rejoin the fight. After some time, the last two still standing was this gutsy mammal in a winged black draconic creature with flames potent enough to melt the surrounding rocks. While they stared each other down, I couldn't help but hope for the little creature's victory, however impossible it may have seemed at the time. Tenacious though it may be, it clearly lacked the power to triumph over the monster. After a few clashes where the smaller one came out worse each time, something quite peculiar happened. The smaller one started to glow with a powerful light. After a few heartbeats, the light dimmed and I could see the transformation. Limbs exuding strength, claws that could inflict dangerous wounds, and a regal air that matched the draconic beast. When they began their clash once again, it wasn't much of a contest. During my travels, I decided to take a day off in a town by Great Lake. A beautiful town with a large and deep river from the lake winding throughout it. While this river added to the town's beauty, on my stay it also became the means for a great serpent to wreak havoc. Clearly enraged, it blasted geysers of pressurized water and powerful beams of energy. Thankfully, the town's occupants managed to flee to safety when they heard the first roar. Before it could cause too much damage to the town's homes and businesses, someone arrived to confront the beast. A woman in uniform riding a creature resembling a plesiosaur, with large blunted spikes on the shell on its back. During that battle, the ranger had her companion simply evade and lead the wild creature out of the town. The woman and her partner demonstrated great skill in evading all the attacks thrown their way. Unfortunately, this only served to infuriate the beast further and cause a peculiar change. It gained more bulk and grew 2 giant fins on its back, but more importantly, with its new form, it also attained more potent firepower. Now using its water abilities to jettison itself forward, its two opponents were in greater danger. Growing ever closer, the two partners started to take glancing blows from its beams and began having more difficulties evading the now monstrous creature's jaws. Almost in response, the ranger's companion also began to change. With the more sleek body and its shell morphing to accommodate its rider better, they were able to outspeed the serpent and successfully lure it outside of town. Afterwards, it came out that the ones responsible was a shady company that decided to recreate an experiment by a criminal organization. In this world, one must be careful and respectful to nature and its inhabitants. The vast ocean hasn't been given nearly enough time and effort into unveiling its abundant mysteries, less so its deep dark depths. I set out to lay eyes in the abyss of the ocean, or as deep as current technology would allow me. After commissioning an odd trio with quite a hefty sum for a one-person submersible, and only having to wait a single day for them to complete it, I set off. While I continued to go forward, less and less light could reach me as the surface drifted away. Many a creature that I cataloged during my exploration of the ocean floor, the one that stood out the most, I encountered past the limit that humanity has gone before. Eventually, I reached a depth where the only light was for me. After some time, I saw the most wondrous thing, a long-thought extinct species. What's more, an advanced form of it. Leisurely walking along the ocean floor, where the water pressure could most likely crumple metal like paper, I had the good fortune to see its hunting behaviors as well. Capable of sudden explosive speed, it was able to skewer and bisect its prey with retractable blades, and deliver surprise attacks with a tail that can extend to thrice its normal length. Deciding to push my luck insubmersible, I began my long trip back to the surface. Even under crushing pressure that could flatten any normal person in a second, all the readings of my ship remain optimal. Truly, those three must have been engineering geniuses to construct my vessel, and on such short notice as well. I've heard stories of a misty mountain that few have ever conquered. Countless hikers and adventurers have gone on a pilgrimage to its peak, but have found themselves walking out of the mist at the mountain's base hours later with no recollection of how they returned, with their last memory of climbing ever upward. My curiosity piqued, I decided to explore the mysterious mountain. What flora and fauna would I witness on my escapade? With camping and hiking gear, I set off. With no intention of conquering the mountain, I simply went where my whimsy took me, confident in the thought that the mist would return me. My only desire was to experience the misty terrain and lay eyes on those that call this mountain home. Hours upon hours I wandered, and contrary to my initial thoughts, I mostly saw bipedal or humanoid creatures. While there were insects and others with leafy limbs and bodies, it was mostly beings that enjoyed hand-to-hand combat or some kind of martial art that inhabited this mountain. After losing track of time, I started to run into less and less living creatures, until the only two I encountered during my third day on the mountain was a bipedal jackal and a meditating creature with bulbous legs. On my fifth day, I finally escaped the mist's embrace into a clearing. I had wandered into the top of the mountain. A humanoid that stood about a head shorter than me, with a lean body and weathered hands that have gone through countless battles, was there to greet me. It was obvious that he was waiting for a partner to test its skills. Witnessing many others polishing their martial arts on my climb also set a fire within me. Even though it was a light spar, every glancing blow I managed to deflect, I could tell the piercing power it could unleash. A full power punch would most likely shatter one's body to their very core. After only a few moments of exchanging a flurry of attacks, it seemed satisfied. It continued to challenge the others that conquered the mountain. A four-armed behemoth, a dragon with clanging scales, the bipedal jackal, and the humanoid with bulbous legs. I managed to capture all on camera for future study. Satisfied with my findings, I returned with a feeling of enlightenment and a motivated fighting spirit. Eyewitness reports of a large insectoid group passing through the outskirts of a city have piqued my interests. The racing being, it was said to be a group of one of my favorite creatures, a large mantis with razor-sharp limbs and blistering speed. Not letting my chance of learning more about these fascinating mantids pass me by, I immediately began tracking them. Using a mix of binoculars and cameras, I kept my distance to not disturb their natural habits. After a day, I was able to gather that they were migrating to a large nearby forest. They sat at an intense pace when not resting, or testing their skills against each other. On my second day following them, I started to notice something peculiar. A shadow would sometimes appear in my peripheral vision and vanish in a fraction of a second. The first time, I dismissed it as my imagination. However, after the third time, I could ignore it no longer. On the third day, they arrived and made themselves at home by a still lake in the middle of the forest. Still, the shadow continued to elude me. Deciding to finally put this little mystery to rest, I let my instincts guide me. Honing all my senses to the absolute limit and beyond, I tried to grasp any stimulant for a clue. With the caress of the wind and the lightest sound of the serene lake being disturbed, I finally laid eyes on it. Standing in the middle of the lake was the elusive creature. It stood on the water, the next stage of the mantids I have been following. A body perfect for stealth and two straight blades was its most dominating features. 1 second was all I had to burn its image into my mind, then it was gone. Only after I concluded my trip and headed back to the nearest city that I realized, while I followed the group, I was being followed in return.